Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Sober Life Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jones. I want to thank you all for joining us. And before we get started with the show, I want to remind you it's very important that you subscribe to the channel and that you share this with your friends. And, of course, leave comments because we see those. Even if you're watching a replay, which you will because we're pre-recording the show, we do go back and look at those comments. So if there's something you'd like to share with us, or if you want to reach out to any of our guests, leave that in the comments and they will get that information and they'll be able to get back to you. That's the easiest way to do it. Also, if you'd like to be a guest on this show, if you'd like to talk about recovery or your addiction journey or your mental health journey, that's really important as well. Please join in. This show is being brought to you by Sober Life Studios and, of course, One Brother, One Sister, our nonprofit, which makes sure that first responders gets all the education, training, and support that they need to deal with trauma, mental health, and addictions as well. All right. I'm in the home studio today. I'm not in the big studio at the office. I'm in my home studio today because I've got a little touch of whatever this last, I don't know, porky pig virus thing, whatever's going around. I don't know. Somebody forgot to wipe themselves in Manila somewhere. Now I got some disease. I don't know what it is. But that's it's been going around, some sort of chest infection. But I'm fine. And my other guests that they're joining us, they've already been through it. So we're all good. And you cannot catch it by watching this show. So don't worry about it. Take off your mask, lick the screen. You'll be fine. All right. Let me bring our first guest in, and I'm going to bring him in just in the order that they showed up today. First guest we have is Jason Pryor. And Jason is coming to us from Serenity Springs Recovery Center. Jason, how are you, brother? You got to unmute. There you go.
Doing well, Mr. Scott. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Man, it is such a pleasure, such a pleasure. We're going to be up in your neck of the woods coming up in a few weeks. So we'll get a chance to hang out and share a cup of coffee or something.
Yes.
But I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story and share everything else with us today.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a pleasure to sit down with you guys, especially you and Miss Karen, have you guys come to our area, make some good connections, try to get rid of some of the stigma around, alcoholism, substance use disorder, and addiction. And so I guess a little bit about me, and probably one of the most important things in my journey and learning my truth is that I am alcoholic. And more importantly, that I've recovered from this disease, a hopeless state of mind, not to be mistaken with cured, but I no longer have that obsession. And as long as I don't put the first one in, I don't struggle with the allergy either. And it's been a long journey. So kind of how I got here, originally from Georgia, Athens, go Dogs.
Yes, never would have guessed you were a Southerner.
Yes, sir. You can tell by the accent, huh?
Yeah.
And so I kind of keep it short. We all know the horror stories, but basically about 17 years of running and gunning, and it ends up being, intravenous methamphetamine use and
wow.
vodka by the half gallons. And when I've come to learn and understand, and probably the oldest definition of alcoholism to me is just I have this yearning to be okay. And as far as I can look back, man, I think I've had that my whole life, even as a child. And what I come to learn about myself is that, drugs and alcohol were never the problem, but it was the solution to the problem, which is the way that I thought and the way that I felt. I have a spring inside my chest that's wound up like a 7-day clock, and I'm riddled with fear and anxiety and, fear of what you guys think about me, fear of what I think about myself, fear of losing what I have, not getting what I want. And I'm not much, but I'm all I think about all the time. And
that's a good way to explain how that works. And then you really got that feeling in there. And you certainly, you've qualified yourself to be somebody. And I'm so glad you found your way to recovery, my friend. This is really good. Mm-hmm. I want to bring on Chaz as well. And Chaz Stoneking is joining us. And Chaz is from St. John's Recovery Place up in your neck of the woods. You guys are kind of working together up there. And Chaz, tell us who you are and where'd you come from?
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott, so much for having us on today. Jason, always a pleasure. Love working with my friends over there at Serenity Springs. And you guys, too, and what you're doing for the community, Scott, you and Karen, one brother. I do identify as somebody in recovery. And, I never thought I could say that. And when Jason was introducing himself, he said some really good things that my whole life I thought I was alone. I could around people, my family that
We're getting clipping. You're cutting in and out a little bit with your mic.
Yeah.
So if just probably speak a little louder, and that probably will cure that.
How's that? Any better?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So yeah, like I was saying, I could be surrounded by my family, friends, people that genuinely loved and cared about me, but I felt like I didn't quite belong. There was that fear there, that separation. I'm terminally unique. I don't fit in here. And like Jason said, that disease, to me today, I understand it as the disease of fear, and Jason said this too. Nobody cares about me more than me. Thinking about myself, it's never good, never, ever good. So I had to learn that. And then coming into recovery and meeting people like Jason, my sponsor, people in the sober living I was in treatment, I realized I'm not alone. I'm not alone. There's people that feel the way I feel, think the way I think, and we have a common problem no matter where we come from. And today, thank God, we have a common solution.
Well, and I think everybody understands, which unfortunately a lot of treatment is based on, let's tell everybody what they already know about how bad their life is. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about how good it can be.
Yes.
But the first thing I want to know is generally there's one turning point. There might be several things that compound, but there's one turning point that happens for everybody, and it's different for everybody, where they kind of wake up to the idea that I have to change. Jason, can you tell us what that turning point was for you?
I can. And it was October 16th, 2018. And I kind of got to give a backstory on this because, a lot of times we get this misconception that the surrender part of my first step experience is going to be conditioned by external circumstances, which it wasn't for me. 6 months before this, I was sleeping in a laundromat with nothing except for a phone and some people, associates that I probably shouldn't be associating with, but it was still an idea that I had. If I kept these connections, everything is going to be okay. I catch 2 possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine charges, and I go back to my sister's house. She's like the rock of my family. Always picks up the pieces. She's a saint. If I could grow up and be anything about this much like she is, I'll be winning. So I get a job back. I have some money in my pocket. I don't have a car, but I have somewhere to live. And I don't know, like this first step experience that I have, it was a gift for me because I'm not the type of guy that just goes and waves the flags like, hey, I give up. That's just not in me. The only difference is that the substances I was using no longer was solution. I no longer found peace and ease in drinking and drugging like I once did, and I was out of ideas. And in that moment, I became completely willing to do anything that somebody else told me to do, and I was ready to take direction. Thinking 6 months before that, Jay, you're sleeping in a laundromat, you're finna go back to prison, like all these things you thought like a normal person would be like, hey, that's it, that's enough, I'm done. But not me. I still got some ideas left. And so, the internal condition was so broken and I couldn't find any peace and relief in anything that I was able to surrender, which I think was a gift because I don't do that.
Yeah, that's to have that awareness that I like to call it inspired awareness because we're not sure where it came from, where we say, this isn't working anymore because we'll lie to ourselves all day. That's right. If I took a sip of drink and blood came shooting out of my eyes, I'd say, well, at least it's pretty. We don't see what it is, but to have that inspired awareness where you say, this is no longer working in my life. This is no longer good. I'm no longer getting anything out of it. And I think that's really an important place where change can happen. Chaz, same thing for you, brother. I mean, you kind of laid it out there. You were heading down a bad place. What turned it around for you?
Most definitely. So I was born and raised in West Virginia, small town in West Virginia. And around 2017, and I too took the IV route. Opiates and benzos, alcohol are my drugs of choice. Really anything I could put in my body to change the way I felt, mainly about myself. I wanted to belong, like I said. And so I moved down to Florida in 2017, trying that geographical location change, like I'm not I'm not the problem. West Virginia's the problem. Get me out of here. I'll go to Orlando. I'll get a job. I'll pay my taxes. I'll volunteer at the soup kitchen. You know, I gave recovery a shot. But I thought if I could just get out of West Virginia and move to a new location with family, you know, I'll be set. I'll cure myself. Like I said, never been in rooms of pathway treatment. And so I was sober for a little while, you know, about 2 weeks, and then got in some trouble. So that took me down another spiral, and it took me 3 more years to find that moment. It was May 14th, 2021. So I had a bad seizure, and parents had to find me outside on the pool deck. Took me to the hospital in Orlando. From there, stayed in the hospital about 7 days, and I was there and I cried. Right around COVID time.
We're losing you again.
Yeah, that's better. Sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Hey, every once in a while this stuff happens, but hey, it's all cool in the gang. You were saying you were being taken to the hospital.
Yeah, I was taken to the hospital and every single night and cried because I was alone. And I was thinking, how could I woke up one night in the middle of the night, nurse had her praying. And it was, you know, I was beaten into a state of reasonableness to where I would be willing to do anything it took. And, you know, from that moment, like, God.
All right. We caught 90% of that, so there's just a little bit of does somebody have chimes or something in the background? Am I hearing chimes, or is that just me?
I hear it too.
That's mine. Hold on 1 second.
You got chimes.
I do.
I thought it was just me. I thought it's like, hey, you guys are so inspiring. We got like church stuff going on.
It's God showing up.
No, beautiful. I'm so glad you shared that. It's you know, it's one thing to find that moment where you say, I got to make some changes and I've got to do something different. I think there's also an important moment in everyone's recovery who has successful recovery. And successful recovery, I'm talking about years and multiples of years, where it's like you find that thing that makes it worth being sober, that you find that thing. Do you guys know what I'm talking about and having that experience?
Yes.
Jason, what was it for you? What was it that you found when you walked into recovery that made you say, this is where I belong?
So I walked in recovery, like Chaz said, beaten to a state of reasonableness, crushed by a self-imposed crisis. I don't have anything else to try, but I don't believe that this is going to work. But I'm willing to take the suggestions that you're giving me. And so like it's a flimsy read at first. And I went through a long-term place called the Bridges of Hope in Georgia. And it's basically big book boot camp. You study the book, we go line by line. You're trained for sponsorship, walking out the door, down to shaving your face, tucking in your shirt, keeping your shoes in a line. And all this was, when I was there, I'm like, what does this got to do with staying sober? But it was creating the willingness to do something different because everything has to change. And so I sit in the Bridges of Hope and I go through the step work and I go through 4, 5, 6, 7, make my list in 8. And I go home to making amends on past to this person I basically tortured mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And it takes about 2 years of separation between this person before God prepared my heart and God prepared her heart to where we'd be open for this amends. And I make the approach and say, hey, you know, there's some things that I'd really like to talk to you about. Are you okay with this? And she says, okay. So she comes to my sister's house. And, you know, I go in there and I own all my mistakes, how selfish and self-centered I was, all the, you know, the manipulation and the lies and, you know, that all the pain that I had caused her. And I asked her the 3 questions that was taught to me in this amends process, you know, and I asked her, you know, how did this make you feel? And she told me, and I asked her, did I leave anything out? And she told me, and then I asked her what I could do to make it better. And this is where God really kicked my teeth down my throat. And she was like, Jay, I only wanted you to have a little bit of compassion for the things that you put me through. And I could see in that moment that I was incapable of loving anybody or anything. in this time of when I was running and gunning. And there wasn't nothing different than us sitting down talking here right now, except that my heart was open. The willingness was there to do this. I was shaking like a leaf. This girl has every right to spit in my face, hit me in the mouth, do whatever she wants to. She has every right to do that. But I was willing to do that. And in our book, it talks about Bill Wilson has this white light experience, right? And I had a white light experience, and it wasn't that the heavens opened up and everything around me got real bright. It wasn't anything like that. But in that moment, God came in, it busted loose, and everything that I had been studying for the past 6 months, I had tangible results with, and I had a peace, and I was lifted up on my feet, and everything in the universe was in a straight line, and everything's going to be okay. And I became completely sold on the ideas in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because now it's not a theory. I got tangible results. This stuff works. And I've never looked back. And from them, I know. And it was kind of like, the first time I think I smoked weed alcoholically as a teenager, because once I, smoked some weed, I was like, aha, this is it. I have arrived. I'm going to do this for a really long time. Yeah. And I had the same experience in step 9 in recovery.
Wow. Well, I mean, you might not have had the big white light, but you did have the chimes.
Yes.
That's good. That's great. Chaz, same question for you. I mean, I think sometimes we don't talk about this enough. Is we always talk about that moment when we surrender, we put it down, or when we walk in broken, we talk about those things. But what was it? At some point, there has to be something that becomes your anchor, something that grabs you and says, "This is what I want to do." Did you have that?
I did, in a way. Mine came a little slower. I went to an inpatient treatment facility down south. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
So I went to an inpatient treatment facility. The first time I was 31 years old, and I've been struggling with substance use from the ages of 17 to 31. And, so I get to the end of my inpatient stay, which is generally around 28, 30 days. And, my therapist calls me in. He's all happy and go lucky. He said, "Hey, we got another place for you to go. We're going to call it Aftercare. We're going to take you to sober living in Palm Coast." So I'm like, "Where is Palm Coast?" I don't know where I'm going. And they put me in a car and they shipped me off. And I told my family, I said, "Look, I'm going to give this a shot for 30 days. That's it." On day 3 or day 4, at 31 years old, I called my family back home. I said, "I got to stay longer than 30 days. And I've been in Palm Coast ever since. That was almost 3 years ago now. And so the reason I stayed is because I had those connections. I had people that understood. We had a solution. We were growing together. It didn't matter if you were 18 or 64 in that sober living. We were all there for the same reason, and we were trying to recover together. And at that point, I started buying in a little more. But I'll tell you this. So it came a point in my sober living journey where it was time for me to start working. And I still have reservations at this point, if this could work for me. I see it work for everybody else. Could it work for me? And can I be happy? Can I be happy? And so I showed up to work one day, and I was still staying in sober living, and a guy pulled out my drugs of choice. And at that point, right, I was working on my 4-step at this time. That was, I had like 4 months sober, but it was right in front of me, right? No sober living manager. My sponsor wasn't standing there. My mom and dad weren't standing there, right? I was alone with my substance of choice. And I said no. That was the first time I've ever said no in my life. And I went outside and I broke down and I started crying. And I called my sponsor and I started calling some people, because that's when I realized for real that this thing works. We can say we do recover, and we all have a message to carry.
Wow. I love these powerful moments that we have when these things this light comes on within us. And working with other people, this is one of the joys that we all get to have. We get to see this light turn on for other people. And just through sheer chance, we get to be a part of their miracles, which is awesome. God knows I didn't deserve a miracle for me or to be involved in anyone else's. My life, I traded in my membership card to the human race a long time ago, but I've been gifted. I didn't get awarded because I didn't earn it. I didn't earn it, but I was gifted a second opportunity, and through that gift, I get to share in so many great stories. I also get to share in a lot of tragedy too. But that's the cross we bear when we're trying to help people, right? Sometimes we got to deal with the tragedy. This is awesome stuff. Now, there are things that you have to do for you. Now, some people take different paths. Some people use the 12 steps. Some people use church. Some people use therapy. It's really about making that commitment. So if you had to say there's 3 things that are key to your recovery that you had to do at the beginning and that you continue to do today, what would those things be, Jason?
Number 1, sponsorship, hands down. Behind that, probably prayer and meditation. And then behind that is probably 3 inventories for the rest of my life: an annual, a 10th step walking around, and a nightly review in my 11th step. Coupled with when I do them things, I get to be a service everywhere. And I get to, what happened for me is I come from a Southern Baptist background. So I had a lot of prejudiced ideas about what God was and how it was going to be and what it's going to look. And the big book just cracked this door open for me spiritually. Now, my sponsors got us down like a yogi path with Paramahansa Yogananda and a bunch of different things. And I can see all the spiritual principles and all religions line up the same. So I go to church on Sundays. I go to, Buddhist type sound baths and meditation sessions and things like that, whatever I can do, because to me, at the end of the day, I miss God a lot. And how do I find God is when I draw close near to him and I seek it, right? I only find God in the seeking, and whatever that seeking is, the therapy, the soup kitchen that Chaz was talking about, being of service to people, the sponsorship and all these things. That's where I find my connection at. It's through the footwork and the seeking.
Absolutely. And that seeking is not just an outward seeking. You got to seek within too.
Yes.
Because if you don't understand who you are, how are you going to be of service to anything?
Exactly.
Whether it's a God or a program or a sponsor or anything, you've got to know you. So the journey is inward as you reach outward. It's hard to explain to people, but I know you guys get it. Chaz, what about you? I mean, what are some things that you do that you started doing then that you still do today that are part of your recovery?
So, like you said, Scott, there is multiple pathways to recovery today. You got AA, Celebrate Recovery, Church, Smart Recovery. Like there's so many. I think there's over like 130,
Yeah.
And so I was, AA was kind of forced on me in sober living. I wouldn't have given it a shot. I'm going to be leaving. I'm not going to wander into a meeting and say, hey, I'm Chaz, I'm new. Can somebody help me? I have no clue what I'm doing. But sober living, they taught me what to do, because that's my problem. Drugs and alcohol aren't my problem. Sobriety is the problem. And I can't stay sober, and so I was suggested 5 things in early recovery by my sponsor. And that is, like Jason said, pray and meditate. Those are 2. Talk to another alcoholic, read some form of AA literature or spiritual growth, literature every single day, and go to a meeting, and I'll tell you what, I don't hit all 5 of those today. But when I do, I notice, and my family notices, my employer notices, the people I'm working with, they notice too, because, what I'm seeking is that that's why I use substances, or like Jason said, he smoked weed alcoholically. I could work alcoholically before I knew I was an alcoholic. I would use women to treat my alcoholism, the gym, whatever it was, money, anything that gave me a sense of relief. And today recovery has brought me that sense of relief. And I have a life that is beyond my wildest dreams. I go to sleep every single night, feeling happy and like I fulfilled a purpose for the day, and I lived for myself long enough. Today I get to live for something bigger, and there's relief and peace in that.
I love all this stuff you guys are sharing here, and I think it's really, really important. I want to definitely give a big nod to sponsorship, because sponsorship isn't just relegated to the recovery world. If you want to start a business, you should find yourself, for lack of a better term, a sponsor or a Svengali or somebody you're going to follow, somebody who's your idol, so that you can learn from them. Because you don't walk in and just learn stuff because you walk into a room. You need somebody to show you the path. And that's really important in recovery, having the right person to show you that path. And guess what? There are bad fits too. There are times when, hey, listen, I've had sponsors where I've had to say, this ain't working. Because, we met and it was great for 10 minutes, but now that we're talking for 10 hours, this shit ain't working for me. I needed somebody else. And I had to find somebody that works with me. But through sponsorship, I learned new ways of doing things. And I could find my connections with my higher power, with people, with a fellowship, with my tribe, with myself. So I think that's really number one, is to have a guide. Would you agree with that, Jason?
I do, for 100%. It's funny. I changed sponsors 4 times when I got down here until I found the one that I do now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect system. You don't just look at somebody and say, oh, that's the guy or that's the girl or whatever. No. I mean, you've got to find something that fits with you. And, and if you like what they do, follow what they do. And that's, well, we lost our buddy there. He probably hit the off button. I'm sure he'll be back in 1 minute. That's great. That's great. So I got to ask you, Jason, before the alcohol and drugs completely took over and before your recovery, what did you want to do with your life? Because I have a feeling working in recovery wasn't it.
It sure wasn't. As far as I can remember back, even in kindergarten, like I can't remember what it was. My mom pulled out this picture I drawn at school, and it was like an F-14 fighter pilot jet. And even later on in my journey, I went to Georgia Military College to join the Navy and fly planes. And in the process, I land surveyed for 13 years, and the owner of the company was willing to let me take the test before you had to have 4 years in an engineering background, and all I had to do was pass a hydrology study, right? Because we're people that are very smart and have lots of skills and aptitudes, and you put me somewhere and I can learn anything really quick, and I'm really good at it, except for staying sober. So I've had all these dreams and aspirations of joining the military, of owning this land surveying company, all these things, right? And
Sorry. Go ahead. Go on.
And so, I never intended to work at Serenity Springs in Edgewater, Florida, off a road called Cow Creek Road in the middle of nowhere. I'm from Georgia. How did I even get down here? And it goes back to that surrender and really that letting this power that I call God manage my life. And at the Bridges of Hope, our director of operations called and was like, hey, we need 2 RAs. And I've never done this before in my life. And I took the direction that they gave me, and I had to even file for an interstate compact transfer on my felony and probation work. The probation officer told me, Jay, there's a 99.94% chance they're going to deny this because you are a flight risk. You never report. You make us come find you. And I said, look, I'm just taking the directions. And 2 months later, he called back and he said, I don't know how this happened, but pack your stuff. You're going to Florida. And so then I just my whole life in recovery has been following direction.
Wow.
Where God wants me to go. And, it's Edgewater and Serenity Springs now, but who knows what it's going to be later on. But when that next thing shows up, I'll be ready to go. Right?
You feel now that being of service to people is your calling at this point?
For sure. Hands down.
It's I always find it important, and I always say to people, if I don't care about other people's recovery, it means I don't care about my own. It's right. Not as selfish. It cannot be, I'm going to take care of me. It doesn't matter what happened to anybody else. Everyone else has to matter just as much, because that's what recovery is about. Recovery isn't about being selfish. Recovery is about being selfless. That's now, right. Chaz, I know you disappeared for a moment. I'm glad you're back, buddy. Hey, you know what? We kind of.
I'm having major technical. What's funny, Scott, though, is like Jason's chimes are going off. My mic's not working. My phone just died. That's where I disappeared before. I tried to plug the phone in before it died. I got people out here cutting the grass today. These are things before spiritual growth and the program of recovery I work that would have set me off. Yeah, because why? Like Jason said, I'm afraid of what you guys think about me, our listeners think about me. I want everything to be perfect, but perfect to me is the way I want it.
Yeah.
But today I can kind of laugh at this stuff, man. So thank you guys for bearing with me.
No, listen, you know what? I always say this is everybody's always looking for that perfect. What's the perfect this and the perfect that? We don't want perfect. Mm-mm. When you go to Disney World, the longest lines, or any amusement park, the longest lines are on the roller coasters. The ones that twist you and turn you and flip you up and flip you down. Okay. The ones that flip you up, flip you down. You don't know what's going to happen next. You're scared. And we wait in line to go on that. Nobody waits in line to go on a tram that goes in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
when our life starts taking us and twisting us and turning us and things happen, why don't we recognize the fact that that's what's exciting? I've had a perfect life. I'd wake up, I'd drink, I'd fall down. That was perfect. It happened that way every day. Wake up, drink, fall down. Occasionally get arrested in between or something like that. Now I wake up, I don't know what I'm going to face. I don't know who I'm going to be talking to today. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And that's the beauty of it. I've had perfect. Perfect sucks. Perfect sucks. The abnormal, the imperfect is what's perfect. Is the twists, the turns, the ups, the downs, the loops, and the dips. Now, I was asking Jason while you were fixing your problem there, Chaz. Yeah, I know this isn't what you probably had planned for your life. What was your plan when you were before the addiction took what it took from you? What was your plan, and then how did it end up being of service to people?
So I was, like I said, born and raised in West Virginia. And in 2017 or 2007, I'm sorry, I was 17 years old. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I decided I'm going to join the military. And I was so young that my mom and dad had to both sign a waiver for me. Getting out of the military again, I'm like, okay, here I am again. And I call that, like, now I understand it as like spiritual turbulence or spiritual disruption. Like my skin is crawling, right? So I decided I'm going to get married, right? All my military buddies are going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I got married to a really good girl, born and raised in West Virginia too. And, my plan from then was to start a family, go to work, right? And I wanted to go back to school, right? I wanted to be a good son. I wanted to be a good employee. I wanted to grow. I wanted to be a good husband, a good dad, a good member of the community. And there's a point, like I said, I do use Alcoholics Anonymous because it's worked for a long time and it works for me. So I'm kind of scared to try anything else at this point. If it works, it does need fixed.
Yeah.
There's a point in the doctor's opinion where it's talking about a gentleman, and it says, the book says, I've known men who have, had an important, I forget the exact quoting, but had an important date that was to end favorably to them, and then it says they took a drink a day or so prior to the date, and the phenomenon of craving at once became paramount so that all other interests weren't met. And that's what happened in my life. So I planned this great life, but I started using substances, and then at once that became my priority. That became the paramount. That's where my focus was, right? Because something I learned, Scott, from you and a training of yours that I did, was when you're doing an intervention or you're working with an individual, ask questions. Ask questions to the individual, and I use that today because if you would have asked me back then, do you want to be homeless? Do you want to irritate your family all the time? Do you want to be broke all the time? Do you want to wreck cars and end up in the hospital every other week? I would have said no, right? Well, like, how do we get there? That's something I learned from you. And then, like I said, I just moved down and somebody took some time and took a chance on me. And, and I think that's why, Scott, you do this, Jason does this, I do this, I can speak for myself, is because somebody did it for me. Somebody answered the phone, when they probably didn't want to. Somebody showed up when they probably didn't want to. They've been to work, they got family issues, whatever. But somebody took time. And because of their time and the love they gave me, I have recovered. And I'm able to help and show other people that recovery. And I feel like I have an obligation to do that today.
I know. I love that. It's an obligation, but not an obligation that's like a chore. It's an obligation that I willingly do because it does pay so many rewards. It also comes with a lot of heartbreaks. I know all of us have had sleepless nights because we lost. We lost the battle. And the truth is it still 85% of the time we lose the battle. Mm-hmm. It's because we're not at that point yet where we've really figured everything out. We've got some answers and it works for some people, but we got so far to go. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, I think you brought this up at the beginning. One of the biggest problems we have is stigma. If we can get rid of the damn stigma, yes, whether it's mental health, trauma, or addiction or alcoholism or whatever it is, and people could speak to how they're feeling and what's going on with them, we could help so many more people. And to have those open conversations, do you agree? Is that what's really missing in this scenario?
Yes, I really do. And I think that we don't emphasize enough on, the real deal alcoholic or addict has lost the power of choice. Like if I could have just chose to be like, okay, I'm done with this, I'd have done that 17 years ago or however long ago when the mother of my children's packing up my whole house, saying, Jay, I'm tired of this. If you drink again, then I'm leaving. And I get in this horrible car accident and I come back home and she's packing up the whole house. And the only thing I can ask her is, will you take me to the liquor store? This is my family. These are my two children. This is the person that I love. If I could have chose something differently, I'd have chose it right then. And that we're not weak people or bad people, that we're sick, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But if there was more people to having that discussion,
yes,
then more people could have stepped forward and said, let me show you something. Mm-hmm. I don't believe somebody has to reach a breaking point. Mm-hmm. I think they just have to be presented the right thing at the right moment. And sometimes that's how it works. But what do you think about this, Chaz, with the stigma that we suffer from out there? And I want to say there's also a stigma. Recovering people, let's not be a part of the problem. Share your recovery, share your story, everybody's like, well, I don't like to tell people about that stuff. Well, if you don't, how do you expect somebody who's suffering to do it? Chaz, what do you think?
So, I do 100% agree. There is a stigma, and growing up in West Virginia, there wasn't like, this recovery wasn't well known. It wasn't. The resources weren't there. And then when I came down to Florida, I still didn't necessarily know about the resources for about 3 years. But like you look at, people that do what Jason and I do out in the community, Scott and Karen, recovery community organizations, right? Spreading awareness, because I was looking down my road last night, standing outside. I meditated a little bit. I just stand out there and I look down the road and I'm thinking every single one of these houses is affected by this disease one way or the other. Maybe not directly, right? Like within the household, but indirectly. They got a cousin, an uncle, an employer, an employee. It doesn't matter, So with us being out there saying like, hey, we know people are struggling. There is help. We do recover. We're living proof. Everybody on this show is living proof of that. It means a lot. And like you spoke about too, about sharing your story. So my sponsor now, he goes, one time I was like really struggling with something and I voiced it to him and he said, man, I get it. I'm struggling today too. And this guy's got 5 years sober. And I think the lie we tell ourselves is after some time of sobriety, like, it is going to be great all the time. And we're just setting ourselves up for, defeat that way. Like these feelings and emotions come up. And he said, one of the most valuable things you can do at your home group after years of sobriety is going in and sharing real stuff, sharing exactly what's going on with you in that moment, because that helps the newcomer. And I really like that too, because you look at people with significant amount of time of sobriety and you think, man, they never have bad days, especially in early recovery, 30, 60 days. You're like, those guys got it all together all the time. I'm never going to get there. But that's just not the case.
Well, I can tell you in my 20th year, I have bad days. They happen.
Yeah.
But it's what I do with those bad days. Whereas before it was an excuse for me to make things worse. Now it's a call for me to make something better. When things go wrong, and it's how things change. But we need to talk. If it wasn't for Bill W. when he first formed AA, which is kind of the grandfather of all the treatment groups, Bill W. would go into hospitals and he'd say, listen, I'm an alcoholic. Has anybody here got a problem? I'd like to talk to him. If he didn't go out there and do that and essentially self-promote and certainly just let go of the stigma, let go of everything else, and just say, this is who I am. If he didn't do that, it never would have grew the way it did. So I want to make sure that we still have the ability to go out there, and if we see somebody struggling, stop and say something. Yeah. Stop and offer a helping hand. It's nice to sit in church every Sunday, but if you're stepping over a homeless person to get in the front door, you're missing the point. Make sure that you're taking care of our neighbors. In the 12 steps, the original number 12 read, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics. But they made that very, very clear. We're supposed to help our communities. We're supposed to help our families. We're supposed to help our friends. We're supposed to help our coworkers. We have a responsibility to that, and I know you guys are doing that. So I'd like to hear about your places. Can you tell us a little bit about Serenity Springs Recovery Center?
Yeah, Serenity Springs is a gender-specific, all-male substance use disorder mental health treatment facility located on 38 acres of beautiful sanctuary. We're out of the city. Cow Creek Road is about a mile long. We're the only facility or even house on the road. Something that's really important and special about Serenity to me is that the big book and the 12 steps are still there. We do offer, ART, EMDR, motivational interview and cognitive behavioral therapy. Coupled with the 12-step, this immersion process makes it really special. Because it opens me up. It allows me to be honest with my therapist, and magical things happen when I can be honest with these people that's really trying to help me and follow this treatment plan. And the culture there, the culture being all male, that the groups get really transparent. These guys eat together, they sleep together, they go bowling together, they're recovering together, like they're in here sharing, some of their deepest, darkest, intimate secrets with each other at times. And it's just a wonderful place. We got a chef that's probably our MVP to the guys there that cooks 5 days a week, lunch and dinner. Saturdays, we try to get them out to bowling or putt-putting, maybe the movie theater, because they are in a very intense schedule during the week. First group starts with morning meditation at 7 a.m. and they're in group all the way to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, of course, with breaks in between, and 1.5 hour break between 12 and 1:45 right there at lunchtime. We work heavy on early discharge planning and case management to give these guys something to live for and make it real. We're ASAM accredited now, so we really look at every dimension of ASAM. Do these guys need employment? Do these guys want to go back to school? Do the family need healing? Do we need to work on housing? Do they need a driver's license? Do they need primary care doctors set up? And we work on all them things. We got a few guys in Daytona State College in the trade program. One's training to be a welder right now. A lot of these guys go to work at Publix here in our community. We go to outside meetings every night or have an H&I meeting brought in on Wednesday. Our alumni program comes in and shares their story, because I think it's really important for that identification piece. Be like, look, man, I know what it's like to sit on these couches where you're at. This is what Serenity done for me. This is the practical application of what they gave me here. I'm doing it out here, and this is what my life looks like today. And it's a special place. There's a lot of freedom there. They wander. We take them to the beach on Wednesdays, if weather permitting. And like I said, I think the most important thing there is the culture and the small, intimate environment we have. We're only having 19 beds. The client to staff ratio is 2-to-1. So they dig like it's a one-on-one sessions all the time. And it's not just getting shuffled through the herd. And, if there was 120, 130 bed treatment facility.
Yeah. And having all one gender, all male, that's really necessary for some people. Yes. Not everybody needs to be in an all female or all male facility, but there are some people where they really need that because of maybe some other issues that they're having that now you can address in an open way where you couldn't do it in a code. So it's really important you look at and make sure it's the right fit.
Yes.
Obviously, Serenity's not right for everybody. If you're a pregnant young woman, you're not going to be going there. But for most people, it's a good place for them to look at. What's their website?
www.serenityspringsrecoverycenter.com.
There you go. It's just like it says, serenityspringsrecoverycenter.com. Chaz, tell us about St. John's Recovery Place. And I know you guys work hand in hand, so I'm glad you guys could. By the way, this is what we should be doing in the treatment communities, is different companies coming together and saying, listen, we're not running out of people who are sick. but we are running out of people who are working together to make it better. The fact that you guys can work together so well is such a good statement towards what you're doing in recovery now. So we appreciate it. But tell us about St. John's.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to circle back to something you said about Bill W. real quick early on.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. And, recovery, like they used to just do one meeting a week. There was no cell phones. I don't even know. They probably didn't even have landlines then. I don't know.
No, a lot of places, and that made the 90 and 90 really hard to get done. You know that?
Yeah. Took about 20 years to get there. But I think about that. Like, what's beautiful about today is like society is coming to the point. I think we're on the cusp of it. They're acknowledging that this is a problem, especially in the workplace and home. Recovery is 24/7 today. It doesn't matter where I am when I'm traveling. There's an app. I can check out meetings. I can call people. We are blessed today to have the resources available whenever we need. But back to St. John's Recovery Place, like Jason's spot, I've actually been over there to Serenity Springs, beautiful location, great team, worked very closely, like you said. We're small, one facility at St. John's, mom and pop style treatment. We are detox and residential, so full inpatient. Our program is about 28 days long. Work with essentially every insurance under the sun, and male, female, adult. And we're located on 8 acres of land next to Crescent Lake. So a lot like Jason's place, when we're out there using, like I'm seeking peace, St. John's Recovery Place and Serenity Springs Recovery Center have done a phenomenal job with giving peace just with their location alone, and we offer group therapy, individual therapy. We also do EMDR therapy, which is great for processing trauma and the way our brain looks at it. What's really cool is we do brain mapping up there. And what I love about our brain mapping, too, is when somebody comes in, we try to do it the first 3 days of detox. They'll get brain mapped. And then they get it again on their way out the door. So in 28 days, you have a scan of your brain and say like, hey, within, 28 days, your brain has made this much progress, just in this short amount of time. Let's see what happens in another 28. Let's give it a shot. And I love that. We do vibroacoustic therapy, equine therapy. And we also have 2 pontoon boats that we take out on Crescent Lake. So, we're real big about nature and we want, it comes down to like me feeling at peace with self while building those connections in the treatment center. And we have strong case management support too. So they're going to work on, if somebody comes in and, they're struggling with legal stuff. A lot of us come in with some legal stuff hanging over our head. They're going to help you navigate that. FMLA paperwork for work, setting up aftercare, whether it's a standalone sober living or possibly Serenity Springs. We're going to work on a plan with the patient to get them where they need to go, because I couldn't go back to Orlando when I went to inpatient treatment center. And we want to have that conversation with our clients, our patients. Like some people come, they admit from Jacksonville. Maybe they have to go back to Jacksonville because they have a sponsor, have, work, have a family. We want to get them back there, but set them up with something. But some people are like, hey, I need to stay out of Jacksonville. I can't go back. We want to have a conversation with them and figure out the healthiest and most conducive path for their recovery too. Really strong alumni support, great team at St. John's.
And what's the website for St. John's so people could check it out?
Absolutely. So the website for St. John's Recovery Place is just sjrp.com. So really simple, really easy. I'm also going to give our listeners today my direct contact number, if that's okay, Scott.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. If I work for St. John's. I love St. John's Recovery Place. Sometimes, and this is why treatment centers need to work together too, sometimes it may not be an appropriate fit for St. John's Recovery Place. Maybe they would do better at Serenity Springs Recovery Center or vice versa. So I'm happy to help. You can always call me directly. I kind of view myself as a behavioral health care navigator today, or I can help connect with resources. That's what I like doing. If they make it to St. John's, great. But if they need help with standalone sober living, PHP, looking for therapy outside of, inpatient treatment, I'm happy to do that as well. So my contact number is 407-552-7458. Text or call.
Fantastic. Jason, you want your number out there as well?
Yeah, I do. And I just want to say that St. John's Recovery Place has been a great asset for Serenity. We're residential PHP and IOP, so they're probably our number one place we send our detox to, and we can trust them to get them back. Their case management team is great. The nursing staff is great, so we fully support each other. And like Chaz said, we both work for this treatment, different treatment centers, but at the end of the day, my job is whoever calls my phone is to find that patient placement or resources that they need, whether it's man, woman,
right.
child, whoever it is. And my number is 386-444-9981.
Fantastic. Now, so we've got Serenity Springs Recovery Center.com, or you can go to sjrp.com and check out both places. Give them a call. I really encourage people, if you're looking for a place for a loved one, don't just look at the website. Look at the website, then make a phone call and talk to them. Because websites, you don't know what you're looking at with a website, but follow how the people make you feel. And when you're looking at a place like Serenity Springs or St. John's Recovery, you guys are about that really important. It's every person who works there has to care about what they're doing. And it's very, very important that you put your client care above everything else. It's not an easy job what you guys do. You could do something better. You could probably go out and sell Kias and probably get a better night's sleep each night. But I don't think any of us would be satisfied with that. I think we take the heartbreak and the victories and we keep moving because somebody's got to do it. I got to ask you a question, guys. If you don't mind, if you got one more minute here. I usually do this with guests on shows so we get to know them on a personal level. There's an old reporter or interviewer from France, Bernard Pivot, who had these 10 questions he asked people just to see where they're coming from. So I'm going to ask you guys these 10 questions, just quick answers. It just kind of gives us an idea about who you are. All right. The first one, I'll start with Jason. What's your favorite word, Jason?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably God.
All right. Beautiful. Chaz, what's your favorite word?
Grateful.
Grateful. Great. Okay. Chaz, what's your least favorite word?
Fentanyl.
Good. Jason, least favorite word?
Probably to be no.
No? Okay. Jason, what gets you excited, like turns you on creatively and everything else? What is it that really gets you going?
Helping others, whether that's H&I meetings, taking in something like that, working with sponsees, running big book studies, stuff like this.
Excellent. Chaz, same question. What gets you all excited and motivated?
Music.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Right there with you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What, Jason or Chaz, what turns you off completely?
Oh man, turns me off completely. I would say egos.
Good one. Yeah, arrogance is always right there with me too. But Jason, what turns you off, man?
Small talk.
Oh, okay. Well, we're just chit-chatting here, so just sit down and shut up, buddy. All right, a couple more if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
You can answer this if you want to. You don't have to, but you're allowed to answer. Jason, what's your favorite curse word?
The F one.
Okay. Chaz, favorite curse word?
Oh man, I always think the word prick is really funny.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not.
No, it's fine. You can say it. You can say it. No, we're allowed to say this. You know, the way you said that, it really does sound funny. It's just the way you say it. Okay. Chaz, what sound or noise do you love to hear?
I love hearing the birds chirping in the morning.
Beautiful. Jason, what sound or noise do you love to hear?
There's two of them, like the bass in my trunk, got two 12s back there, and then wind chimes you kept on hearing.
All right. Jason, what sound do you hate to hear?
Somebody's teeth hitting, like when they eat their food, like.
Oh, no, the fork thing?
Yes.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
yeah. I hate that. And,
Yeah.
and when they do it, it seems like it's the loudest thing in the room. It really isn't.
Yes.
But it's Chaz, what's the sound you hate?
I was gonna say the same, like the fork on the plate, though.
Oh,
the
no.
fork on the plate, or I got two.
Okay.
Or like loud chewers, like loud smacking chewers. Yeah, can't stand it.
You guys got some food issues. We're gonna have to take you to OA next.
We may need some therapy.
All right. Chaz, we'll hit you with this one. What profession would you love to try? If you could just try it for a day or two, what profession would you love to try?
I would love to be a musician on Broadway.
There you go. Good choice. Jason, how about you? What profession would you love to try just for a couple of days or two?
Fighter pilot.
There you go. Yeah, you talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about that. I think mine would be a race car driver.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just to really feel that,
Yes.
that power. Okay, two more questions. Jason, what profession would you never, ever, ever, ever want to do?
Probably therapist.
I got you. Chaz, how about you? What would you never, ever, ever want to do?
Man, these are good questions.
Yeah, they are.
Like things we don't think about that often. I would say, after my time in the military and with what I do today, Jason and you, Scott, is we meet a lot of first responders. A lot of first responders that deal with trauma every single day they're out there. I would never want to do that. I got nothing but love and respect for those guys that can.
Absolutely. As we all do at One Brother, One Sister, we respect and we thank them for what they do. But you're right. Not many people could do that. Yeah. And to have the awareness of it, that also lends itself to how how hard it is for them. That's really nice. Last question for both of you. Jason, we'll start with you. If heaven exists and you show up at the pearly gates, what would you like God to say to you in that moment?
You did a good job helping my kids.
Nice. Chaz, same question. If heaven exists and you show up at the pearly gates, what would you like God to say to you?
This might make me tear up a little bit, man. Welcome. I've been waiting.
Oh, nice. So you guys make my answer sound so selfish.
Let's hear
it. My answer is welcome. There's a table in the back. Jim Morrison and Elvis are waiting for you. I'm expecting we're going to have a table in the back somewhere, right? Guys, I can't thank you enough for doing the show with us. We went through an hour easy with you guys, and it's been fantastic. Can I ask you that maybe in a couple months we'll get together and do it again?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. I love it.
And maybe what we'll do is we'll set up a specific topic, and we might even get a couple other people in, and we'll tackle some. I want to do some panels of people, and I'd love you guys to be parts of those panels where we can attack different subjects and just put them out there a couple times a year. What do you say?
Sounds great.
I'm in.
Fantastic. And I look forward to seeing you both pretty soon, by the way.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay, both of you, final thoughts. Jason, Chaz, somebody out there's listening and they think, no, let's start it again. They know they should get help, but they can't move their feet. What do you want to tell them, Jason?
Just give us a call. Like, we know what it's like to be there. The worst that's going to happen is you follow some directions and stay sober forever and have the life of your wildest dreams. Like literally going from homeless to Leave It to Beaver family with puppies and fences and houses, and all the things that you've ever wanted, which is a byproduct of doing this work, but the peace and freedom you get within, and to be okay.
Thank you. Chaz, same thing. Somebody sitting there. What do you want to tell them?
Same thing. Pick up the phone. When somebody calls me up, and they've made that call, and I don't mean to sound kind of, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but happy, healthy people don't make those calls. They don't think about going to inpatient treatment. So if you pick up the phone and you need some information, you've done the hard part. Let Jason and I do the rest. We're going to help you. We're going to coach you. We're going to get you in somewhere. So I've also, I listened to a podcast a while back, and I'll share this real quick before we end, is, one of my favorite quotes today I heard in a podcast, and it was, everything I have ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Today I see fear as a threshold. Fear has kept me trapped in toxic relationships. It's kept me trapped in jobs that I hate. It's kept me trapped in negative thinking patterns and behaviors. It's kept me trapped in active addiction. So when we feel that fear today, reach out and grab somebody's hand. We're here waiting.
Absolutely. Jason, Chaz, thank you so very much. Everyone out there, thank you for watching Sober Life Podcast. And as I remind you every time, every day, do 2 nice things for yourself, 1 nice thing for somebody else, and you're never going to have a bad day. For One Brother, One Sister, Sober Life Studios, the Sober Life Podcast, Scott Jones saying thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Scott.